Hello, I'm Patrick Moore.
I'm Marlisa McLaughlin.
Welcome to Help Us.
Perspectives on natural health and healing.
We have an exciting show for you today, and it's called Breathe Your Way to Health. Breathe. The subject of our program is to examine and look at different breathing techniques and ways that you can enhance your health. Breathing is involuntary, natural. We really don't think about it too much, do we? We just take it unconsciously.
And we take it with us everywhere we go, also.
Yeah, it's free. But have you ever considered that there are better or proper ways to breathe, to enhance your health, to optimize your health? Well, today we have one of Connecticut's top experts on breath work, and I'm pleased to welcome you, Johnny.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I want to give you a little background on Johnny. Johnny is a certified breathwork instructor, yoga teacher, certified. He runs a spiritual retreat curator, and he's developed different technologies and methodologies for breathing called Re-Inspire Breathwork Methodology. And he has logged over 3,000 hours in teaching, facilitating, coaching, and basically changing people's lives for the better. Okay, so Marlisa, would you like to ask Johnny how he got involved?
Well, a burning question, like how did you get involved with breath work?
So ultimately what got me involved was, it was pain and discomfort, truly. I had been living a life of burning the candle at both ends, and ultimately led me into a yoga class back about 14, 15 years ago. And in that yoga class where I thought I was going to kind of coast through the yoga class, I found myself really suffering and having a challenging time breathing. And so I knew in that moment, I heard a voice in my head that there was something to explore deeper about my breathing and the breath in general and what it could facilitate and unlock within me. So
Did it take going to the yoga class to discover that?
it did for me. It took going to that yoga class to ultimately just bring that into my attention and bring it into my awareness. Yeah.
And that was your turning point.
That, I would say, that was my turning point. From that point forward, I was on the path to figure it out. What's going on here? There's something else that I hadn't paid attention to all of these years. I was right around 29 years old at that time.
Yeah, because you look pretty fit, like you stay in shape, you're athletic, you're
Yeah.
positive, you're holistic, but it came to you sort of later in life to learn about breathing and the importance of it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, first of all, Patrick. Yeah. I do my best, for sure. And sometimes you don't know what always will drive us in the direction of, going towards holistic health or more of a, deeper practice of spiritual practice. To me, it was the physical discomfort that I was feeling that drove me into a yoga class. And what I found was something that was much more.
And that's really common, actually, for people to have a physical discomfort, an accident, or something that brings them to a place. And yoga's a common place that people land when they actually realize, wait a second here, my breath is off. And I also noticed as a yoga teacher, a lot of people you move, but you're not breathing because you're thinking, so your breath shuts down.
Right.
And you are just magical to help us reconnect with the breath.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, truth. Truth,
Thank
really
you.
good.
So our goal and aim today, having Johnny here, is to educate and elevate people's awareness as to how we can harness the benefits of proper breathing. And I think Johnny will tell you there are different forms of breathing depending on the application. And perhaps you could give us a quick overview of how you define breathing, or the nasal, how this whole system works.
Why don't we take a quick look, though, at the respiratory system for those of you who, we know we have lungs and where they are, but in the diaphragm, Patrick, you said you came across that a lot of people don't know where the diaphragm is. So here's a great little illustration for you folks at home to take a look at the inside of your breathing technology.
Yeah. and you can see there the diaphragm is the main breathing muscle. And when we take an inhale, that parachute-like shape, very thin muscle will contract and fall down, lower down towards your belly, and that creates more space. It almost creates like a vacuum effect,
Ah.
right, on the inhale. So it contracts on the inhale and then eccentrically, right, releases on the exhale. So the more we can strengthen that muscle, bring awareness to that muscle, the deeper, more expansive, more space we create with our breathing, ultimately, for sure.
Thanks, Frank.
Yeah, they're always talking about singing coaches, for example, sing from the diaphragm, right?
Right,
They're
exactly.
always teaching it. But as you said before, Marlisa, so cogently, a lot of people thought that diaphragm is stuck in your throat somewhere, but it actually connects the chest to the abdomen.
The diaphragm, it connects right from the back of your spine, connects to the bottom of the lungs. And as I said, as it contracts, it works its way, just like a parachute, and makes its way down towards your belly and the internal organs in that area. Yeah.
And speaking of which, maybe it's a good time to share with the folks at home about the upper breath and the lower breath. Can you
Sure.
speak to that very simply? And
Yeah, I find that that's one of the most important and beneficial principles to understand about breathing. Oftentimes this can unlock so much for people. Is simply understanding that up in our lungs, really, right? If we look at two sections for sake of this being a little bit more easy to understand, if we think of our chest being the upper section and down by our belly being this lower section, our lower lobes of our lungs. We breathe up in our chest, this will signal a more fight or flight, sympathetic response, right? This is what gets us into a more heightened state, more anxious state. And we're designed this way. All of us humans are designed this way. We have what we call chemoreceptors that are up in our upper chest that will signal the fight or flight response. And down into our lower lobes, we have chemoreceptors, an abundance of chemoreceptors that signal the parasympathetic tone, the rest and digest. If we're looking to get into a more calmer state, simply breathing into our lower lobes will begin to facilitate that process. And so for many of us, we are unconsciously breathing in our upper chest unknowingly, right?
Thanks, Frank.
Unconsciously.
That you would see the chest breathing if it's panic, anxiety, stress, more mouth breathing.
Exactly, yeah, for the most part, yeah. And so just knowing that and having that awareness, just simply beginning to practice breathing, and we can even begin to do that right now. And just,
So we put a hand on the chest and one on the abdomen.
yeah, I like to say if you were to place your left hand on your heart, right on your chest, and your right hand between your rib cage and your belly button, in that area. And I like to say, even just close your eyes and take a moment just to begin to just really bring your attention into how you're breathing in this moment. And simply begin to notice where or which hand is expanding as you're inhaling and which hand is falling back in as you're exhaling. And really making it's not good or bad, it's simply information, right? Maybe I'm unconsciously breathing in my top hand. I've created a pattern of breathing up here. Why is that? We don't even have to go into the why. But it's valuable to know. Maybe I'm taxing my nervous system. Maybe I'm bringing myself into this heightened state unknowingly while I'm sitting watching TV. And so just consciously, this is where I'll start. I'll start with a sigh of relief. So if we all just take a deep inhale in through our nose, and the exhale, just let it go, let it out of your mouth. And maybe you do that again, just taking a full expansive breath in. See if you can breathe down into your lower hand. And your exhale, can you just surrender and just let it go? And slowly begin to breathe in through your nose and see if you can give yourself permission to breathe into your lower hand.
It's almost instant calming just to bring the intention and the attention
That's the
to
nasal
these
breathing.
places. It really is.
Yeah, that's nasal breathing. What I like to say, I start off with my methodology first is breath awareness. What we did, we brought awareness. Where are we? Where are we breathing?
What's our state of mind or emotion, right?
Exactly, right? And it's oftentimes we try to course correct and before we even know where we are because we're just listening to what other people are telling us what to do. But I truly feel as though empowering the individual to make the decisions ultimately. So and this is why within my methodology I really teach principles. And so knowing this and knowing where we are first, and then from there, simply beginning to breathe down into your lower lobes, right, down into that lower hand, and maybe you follow a cadence, right, a rhythm of 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out, 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, something that's attainable, that you can follow, that's relatively easy to follow and attain. And that to me is a great first step that everybody can really apply right away. Right away.
Anywhere, anytime, at the stoplight, at the kitchen sink, talking to a friend, lying down in bed, anywhere.
100%.
It's so accessible. How would you define breath? Like, we all know what breath is, right? But how would you define breath now that it's attached to all of this wonderful information?
Yeah. So if you were to look at anatomic, like an anatomy textbook, they define breathing as really the expansion and contraction of your thoracic cavity. If your thoracic cavity is expanding and contracting, you're breathing, right? To me, I really
Thanks,
like
Frank.
the definition, if we really look at the etymology of the word, and respire, right? And the Latin root of respirar, or respire, the Latin root actually is defined as spirit.
Uh-huh.
And I know this takes us into a whole maybe kind of other realm, although it's not too woo-woo. It really, each breath we take connects us to our spirit, right? Something within us that maybe we feel, we sense, something that's maybe even bigger than just ourselves. And I mean, the fact that it's within the definition of the word should provide us even maybe a deeper sense that this breath connects us to our spirit, to something, to our
Some people would say our soul.
to our soul, to our
Yeah.
life force energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our
And the
chi.
source of our
Or
animation.
chi. Yeah,
Chi, yeah.
you're in Eastern medicine, so you understand, yeah. And that's really what to me, it's the tether, it's what connects us to that, that energy, that deeper sense of who we truly are.
And the sense of wholeness, because you're connecting the breath in that tether there, but also once the breath is in, I had found from taking your class that I really had a sense of coming home, like, oh, my breath is my buddy. Like I don't give it enough attention in that way, that what a companion it is to have your breath with you and to give it the attention so that you can fully embrace the electric nutrition and all of that life-giving force that goes inside you.
I love that.
You said nutrition?
Electric nutrition.
Wow.
Because the electricity, when we were mostly salt water and electricity, so we're getting the electricity and the charge in the breath with all the other stuff.
Is there such a thing as an optimal amount of air each person needs each day? I mean, if we look at nutrition, food and drink, there's an optimal amount of food intake each day that's beneficial to optimize our health. But is there such a thing as optimal air?
That's a good question. To me, that's a case-by-case basis. Using different measurements, you'll hear oftentimes there's a sweet spot for how many breaths per minute, maybe a sweet spot. And that sweet spot is somewhere around 6 to 10 breaths per minute, right? Now, some people might be seeing this at home and saying, wait a minute, and they're counting their breaths and they're like, I'm at 20 some odd breaths. Doesn't necessarily mean you may be breathing more volume of air, right? and they say around 6 liters of air is, you know, how much you can breathe and how much the lungs can carry in that span of time as well. So it is relative. It is relative, and I'm very cautious of just providing very just kind of blanket.
Yeah, it's individuality, biological individuality. Everyone's different.
Truly.
The emotional situation's different too, especially, right?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, totally. And environment. You know, you combine all that stuff there, and then it's a matter of just adjusting. What are the benefits? What can we talk about for the health benefits of proper breathing? Patrick, you had some good thoughts on that one.
Well, it's unlimited. We can only have time to mention a few, but and certainly I've experienced this with nasal breathing and controlled breathing, and as I talked to you about the Navy SEAL breathing, where it developed enormous amount of calmness, focus, concentration, where I really felt in touch, really in touch, and certainly stress. We're all under a lot of stress. But stress reduction, anxiety. I'm sure there are strategies too with breathing techniques for diminishing the risk of panic attacks, right?
Absolutely.
Or even mitigating some of the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder.
There is, yeah. There are different breathing.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, breathing techniques that you can really utilize to release suppressed emotions, which is a deeper form of emotional release breath work, which we're not going to do today because that's
We need a few hours.
we might need some time for that. Yeah.
And we don't want to strand you folks at home with an overload of released emotion once the show is over.
Exactly. But you did bring up, you know, panic attack, and I do have a technique that is really powerful if you're feeling in the moment that a panic attack might be coming on. There's a great technique that I utilize. It's called 5s and 2s, actually. And it's really simple because ultimately if you're going into a state of panic, you're more than likely hyperventilating. And so the remedy for that might be paradoxical, but it's 5s and 2s. And so what I like to do is this, is like breathe in through your nose and breathe out and pinch your nose and hold for about 5 seconds. If 5 seconds is too long, do 3 seconds. And then unpinch and breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, and breathe out, and repeat. Pinch your nose and hold.
All through the nose.
All through the nose.
Okay.
This is specific for a panic attack.
Gotcha.
And if you're unconsciously hyperventilating. And what that begins to do, even just after less than a minute, the central nervous system will begin to calm down. And a few things are happening. I'll just mention 2 major things that are happening. One is that nitric oxide, actually, nasal nitric oxide gets produced in the nasal cavity right here in the turbinates of your nose. And nitric oxide is a vasodilator.
Yeah, it dilates your vessels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so by pinching your nose and holding, you're actually capturing all that nitric oxide. And then the next inhale you take in, you're breathing all that nitric oxide into your lungs. And slowly, right, the constriction that's occurring because is slowly beginning to ease, and your blood vessels and everything is beginning to open up and dilate. The other thing that's occurring is actually CO2. When you're overbreathing, you're actually breathing out too much CO2. And we want to have our blood gases actually imbalanced.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that begins to bring it back into balance.
So in essence, depending on the application, it could be weight loss, digestion, sleep, blood pressure, heart health, posture.
Yeah.
Major
You have
posture.
applications and techniques for almost all health applications.
Yeah, believe it or not.
I mean, it's interesting, just a point, Marlisa, which is very interesting. I found the mayor of New York City, Mayor Adams,
I saw that.
has introduced breathing programs as of this fall into all the schools in New York City, 2 to 5 minutes every day, each classroom, with the hope that this will calm the student's mind, relieve stress, and hopefully improve academic performance and better behavior. Now, half the kids, I teach in a high school, so I know half the kids will be on TikTok during that time. No matter what, you just can't control that. But the other half may really benefit. And the fact that they've instituted a breathing program into the schools from a therapeutic level is groundbreaking.
It's groundbreaking. I was just going to say that. It's one of those things, like if we're bringing our attention, our awareness to that, especially with our youth, every day, and over the course of a week, a month,
A whole school year.
a whole school year, it's a cumulative effect.
Yes.
And if you're consistently bringing your awareness back to your breath, even if it's for 30 seconds, you're coming back into presence.
Yeah, you're just aligning and staying right into the space that you're in.
You're coming back into your body. To me, that's one of the biggest things.
And you're teaching people at a young age that what defensive strategies do I have if I'm being bullied, if I'm being stressed out, if
I just woke up today and it's the day.
Yeah.
Everyone's waking up
think
like
of peer pressure in inner city where I've worked. I mean, you have immigrants, financial problems at home. You have even some kids don't have a home. I mean, there's so many pressures and stresses, and if they can learn effective breathing techniques that can calm the mind and get through it, and what does it cost?
It's free.
Why? What does it cost?
Free medicine.
Free medicine.
Yep.
And you have it for
Self-heal.
life. You can use it
Self-heal.
in business meetings, interviews, athletic performances, and that's another thing about breathing techniques, can enhance physical and athletic performance, our energy, capacity, and stamina, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love what you brought up too, with business and with stress. I feel like that's a great point. Is oftentimes, people are looking for that. They want to just get a quick fix and get out
Or
give
me a pill.
Give me a pill. And to me, it's let's say you're at, from a scale of 1 to 10, and you're redlining. You're at an 8 or a 9, and you're about to blow your top off, and you're about to make a bad decision, in whatever scenario. If in that moment you begin to train yourself, come to my breath, because I know it downregulates my central nervous system. And if I can get to a 6, even a 7, that might be the difference between somebody making that bad decision, losing their job, maybe getting arrested, whatever the case might be, and not having that happen.
Absolutely, and it could also be, thinking about what you just said, it could be one of the best weight loss plans. Take a breathing exercise for 3 minutes before you grab that cake. You have that urge, you're under stress again.
Right.
And you got that carb urge, and you're going to medicate yourself, and afterwards you're going to feel awful. But if you could have that strategy, that technique with you that carries you you carry it all the time.
Yeah.
Get that 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute, whatever the breathing exercise is, and calm the mind. Because what's happening with breathing? Aren't you upping potentially dopamine levels and neurotransmitters?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're creating, physiologically, it's, the name of the game is we're looking to get as much oxygen uptake to our cells and tissues, physiologically.
And blood flow, right? Oxygen, blood flow.
Right.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then emotionally, our breath is connected to our central nervous system. And so, as we're saying, if we can create that buffer between the stimulus that comes our way, because we can't always control life. Let's face it, stimuluses are going to come. But if we can create that buffer between the stimulus that comes our way and hopefully a calculated response and not a reaction.
Right, a trained response for repetition, repetition, repetition.
The breath can be that kind of that middle ground, that tool that we use to create a response and not a reaction.
A great place would be rehabilitation for people, and crime rates would go down, and so many acts of violence could be prevented, and so much. We only have a few minutes left, and Johnny has a lot to share with us. So I love that you talk about breath as a barometer. So could you give us 3 or 4 minutes worth of some applications, and tell us about what they can do for us? Like you were talking about the sigh of relief for one.
Yeah. So a sigh of relief is it's a breathing modality that we already do. And so I like to just, if you find yourself in a stressful situation, can you just practice taking a nice full breath in, and on your exhale, just let it go. With the intention that I'm just giving myself permission to full breath in, really feel into the moment, and exhale, just release out what's not serving you in the moment.
You do a series of those, a few of those?
I'll do a few of those, and you'll find that that's enough of a buffer. And then from there, oftentimes I'll use what I call the triangle breath. And the triangle breath is the same time inhale, same time exhale, and then there's a retention or a light hold of the breath after the exhale before the next inhale. And it's all the same time. So start with 3 seconds. 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out, 3-second retention. And you'll find that even just after 3-4 breaths, you will slowly begin to get yourself, it's a great breathing exercise for focus and get you into the body, get you more grounded to be able to make an informed decision.
Can you lead us just through one triangle?
Sure, yeah. So find yourself in a comfortable position. Let's start with a sigh of relief and take a full breath in. Release and let it go. And breathe in through your nose down into your lower lobe for a count. 2, 3. Exhale. 2, 3. Hold. 2, 3. And breathe in. 2, 3. And breathe out. 2, 3. Hold. 2, 3. Inhale. 2, 3. Exhale. 2, 3. Hold. 2, 3. And one more. In. 2, 3. Out. 2, 3.
Very nice.
Hold. 2, 3.
It's like
Sort of
watching
a
the
four-
waves.
You're holding for 4 seconds? Was that 3 or?
We did 3 there. You could do 4. 4. I find that to be a sweet spot for me too. Is about 4 seconds, but whatever works for you in the moment.
Okay.
It's as easy as 1, 2, 3.
Mary.
If you want to go really fast, sigh of relief, and not let society say, oh, what's wrong? Because a lot of times that's a possible potential reaction, is when someone does a sigh of relief, you might get the reaction like there's something wrong, when actually, in fact, there's something really right about the sigh of relief. So dive in there and take your sigh of relief, and then the triangle breath. That's I wish we had more time. Maybe this is something we continue for everyone at home. We just have a few more minutes.
Well,
just
Johnny,
to,
you have a practice locally, and fortunately for the community, you're here.
Yeah.
You're around. You're one of the best practitioners in Connecticut, and fortunately, Groton has you, or this environment and area.
Thank
And
you.
how often do you have classes that people can attend?
So I do physical classes, in-person classes in my studio Tuesday evenings, 5:30 to 6:15.
And all that information is listed on the, okay?
Yeah, and online I do trainings and a lot of free content on my Facebook page and Instagram, and I have a lot of communities online as well to reach.
the globe.
The globe and even local people. So if some people can't make an in-person class, you can find me online as well, and we can teach these.
You know, I'm a
principles.
naturopath, and I've seen many modalities of healing. People go to their doctor for this, or they go to their nutritionist. But your work you do probably is one of the most beneficial that I've come across.
Oh.
And I think more people should think about breath work and go see Johnny.
That's right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
Thank you.
Frank and SCC TV and the other Frank, and have a great breath or two after the show.
Thank you. Bye.
Continue
you.
breathing.